Yes, welcome back to the gig. How you going? We've got Ron Pope on the other end of the line.
Hello.
Hey Ron, how you going?
Hey. Good. How are you?
I'm going really good. Look, it's my honour to be chatting to you at the moment. Whereabouts are you?
I am in Nashville.
You're in Nashville? Are you really?
Yeah.
How's that going over there?
It's great. It's a beautiful night here, and sitting on the couch watching a baseball game with my dog.
Have you been down to downtown yet?
Downtown in Nashville?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I live here.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, we kind of like split our time between here and New York now. But yeah, no, since I've been off the road, I've been mostly in Nashville. This is where it's funny. So our label is called Brooklyn Basement Records because we started it in Brooklyn, but we mostly run it out of Nashville. Kind of,
yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's irony. Alanis Morissette kind of ruined my idea of what irony is, or taught me incorrectly what it was. So I don't know if that's ironic, but it's certainly interesting.
So Ron, you're based in Nashville and New York at the moment. What's it like
back and forth,
being a musician in with both places being such prominent music places? Like, is it hard or is it inspirational?
You know, honestly, I don't really see anybody else. It's like, I kind of wake up in the morning, I do my job, I come home. So it's not like, I don't know if there's a scene anywhere that I'm immersed in where I'm seeing a lot of people. So for me, I don't know, I could kind of be anywhere and be doing this, and, so it's, it's fine. I like both places. They're places I like, to be, and, but, so I don't know if it really impacts my music or, how I feel about music one way or the other, living in these places.
You're always welcome to move over to Australia, Ron. Hey, look, I'm joined in the studio by my friend Tony. He's a guitarist, and he's been inspired by you for a long time. He's got a couple of things he wants to talk to you about, so I'm going to hand it over to him.
Yeah, hey, man. So, yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm a massive fan. You were one of the first guys that sort of got me writing and playing songs, and it's, awesome to talk to you.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to ask, where you get your inspiration from? What makes you want to say, hey, I want to write something like this, or write something about this, or what inspires you to write?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm just kind of just paying attention, and so whether my songs are about, whether they're point-by-point narratives of real things that have happened to me, or whether they're, stories about, things that I've seen in other people's lives, or, things I'm, just kind of narratives I'm creating. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to kind of access are real, honest, kind of fundamental, basic human emotions, whether it's joy or fear or sadness or hope or love or desire, faith, whatever the thing is. That for me, it's that's what I'm trying to access. So it comes from lots of places, and I just kind of am always writing. The great songwriter Desmond Child, I read something where he said, and I'm going to quote him loosely, but he said, if you want to write songs, you kind of just got to shut up and write songs. And so, I just kind of, I'm always writing, and, just trying to find, something that feels good and feels honest to me, whatever the thing is, about, that depends on the day. But at the end of the day, I'm just kind of searching for, something that feels, meaningful and honest.
Yeah, I like that. And you're right, your music does sound very emotionally raw, it's very powerful, very primal, I guess. I think it's really, really true. Do you think that being that in tune and that connected with your own emotions strengthens you as a person, or does that,
I don't know if it, I'm not sure that it really has an impact on me as a person. I often tell people this, when they when they ask me questions about life, I'm like, well, I don't really know anything more about anything that has to do with feelings than anybody else, and maybe less because I have this outlet that that allows me to work out the things that I have in my head without having to talk about them or deal with them in my actual life. So I I don't know. I don't know if it helps me as a person, but it certainly helps me as an artist.
Yeah. And I did want to ask, because your music's, I haven't heard a lot of people doing what you're doing. Like, sure, there's a lot of acoustic singer-songwriters and stuff, but nothing quite like you, and I can't explain what differs you from other people.
Is that the dog there?
It's just something.
Yeah, that's the dog.
Woof, back at you.
Yeah, there's just something about it that's just incredible and so unique, and I just wanted to know, like, what music you listened to when you were growing up,
For me, so I think honestly, the thing is, and I think this might be why my music is different than some of the other people that you might compare me to. So I hate singer-songwriters. I hate acoustic music, like by and large. Like the kind of acoustic music that I like, is like I like bluegrass, but like guys who play acoustic guitars and like sit and like sit alone on stage and cry. Yeah. Like I think that's like the worst, most self-indulgent thing you can do as an artist, and like I just never want to hear that. And I became a solo artist by accident. Like I was, in a southern rock band, and trying to kind of figure out how to turn that into a career. And I had just written some songs that didn't work with my band. So the things that people began to hear from me in the very beginning, they were just demos that I had made in my bedroom. They weren't anything that I was serious about. They were just things that I was kind of I got them. And my cousin was using MySpace to meet girls. And so he said, "Oh, you got to get on this thing, man. There's bands on there too. It's not just a place for me to pick up girls." So, that's kind of how it started. I'm air quoting my solo career. I don't know. Maybe it's because I wasn't. I don't know. Like there aren't like a lot of people that sit and play acoustic music that I like. And so what I do is maybe different as a result of that. I'm not really sure, honestly. And like, I never really imagined myself as one of those people, I guess. Yeah. I kind of just I was like, I grew up fronting a band. I'm mostly a guitar player. Like if you come and see my show, it's largely me playing electric guitar, running around, sweating, playing solos, like that kind of a thing. And I stole this from Bruce Springsteen, but he says this about him, or I read that he said something like this about himself, and I often say it about myself as well. The difference between me and every other guy who came out of Greenwich Village at the same time as me, carrying an acoustic guitar, is that when the lights go down, I can plug in my Telecaster and burn the building to the ground. And I think that's another thing that kind of roots me into different places. Like, at the end of the day, like, I'm a rock musician. I grew up listening to Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix, and I was talking to my father-in-law the other day. He was talking about listening to Led Zeppelin on his car ride home, and I said, I think that I have probably listened to Led Zeppelin more than every other artist combined, like throughout my life. Like, I've spent more time listening to Led Zeppelin than anything else.
That is a really wise choice.
It's so I don't know, like. I don't know what makes it different. Maybe it's because my taste is fairly broad, and so the things I listen to have always been kind of broad, or
Yeah, Ron, what you said before about Bruce Springsteen, that's going to lead me on to my next question. So do you see yourself actually as more of a guitarist that sings instead of a singer that plays guitar?
Yeah, I mean, if I thought that there was a way that I could not write songs and just play guitar and have people pay attention to me and be allowed to kind of do whatever I want but just play guitar, I would probably just play guitar, to be honest. But songs give music and musicians, they give them context. So, like, for instance, if you were to ask two people who weren't musicians, if you were to say, who do you think is a better guitar player, Eric Clapton or Jeff Beck? Mm-hmm. Well, most of those people would say that Eric Clapton, is a better guitar player. Many of those people wouldn't even know who Jeff Beck is. Yeah. But Jeff Beck is a much better guitar player, like, technical chops wise. He's much more gifted player, much more technically proficient player than Clapton. So why do people regard Clapton as a better player? Well, it's because songs give guitar, give music context. Yeah. And so that's why, Jimi Hendrix is important, but the songs make it so people listen. Like, or, you know, as an artist, like obviously Bob Dylan did a lot of things that are very important.
Yes.
Would we be talking about those things, many decades after the 60s? Would we be talking about those things if he didn't have hits? Like, without Like a Rolling Stone, or would we keep talking about Bob Dylan? I don't know. You know,
I think in the lyrics of, sorry.
Just songs give you context, and that's, I think, for me, I was, writing as a kid. I was writing poems, and I was writing stories, and I was singing, and I was playing guitar, and I realized that a way to make people pay attention to the things my guitar playing and the things that I wanted to say, was to write songs.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, kind of an interesting thing. You build the context, you create the context as a songwriter, and that's what gives you the ability to then get on stage and have a good time and play some guitar and put on a show.
So Ron, I saw you say in an interview that when you first started off, like at your gigs that you do, not like there weren't that many people there. Like I think in one interview you said one gig you did only 4 people would show up. And I'm just wondering what gave you the inspiration to keep going when maybe it wasn't so easy to work your way up to where you are now?
Well, it's against the law to sell drugs, and I don't have any other skills. So I figured, I was like, crack is no longer in vogue, and like I didn't know any place to buy heroin, and I didn't want to go to prison because I'm not that big, and so like, if you go to prison and you're not that big, it's very dangerous.
No one really cares.
I don't.
It's dangerous.
I don't have a ton of other skills. And so, I just kind of was like, well, I mean, I guess I could go dig holes. I didn't have a truck driver's license, so that was kind of a big one.
Need one of those.
Yeah, definitely. You can't just go drive a truck, it turns out, with a regular driver's license. You need a specific license to drive a truck. So I was kind of in a tough spot, I guess, because I didn't know how to do anything else. But I mean, also, I always tell this, kids who are, beginning their careers, and if you can think of something else that you'd be willing to do, like that you would get out of bed every day to do, you should do that. It's very, very hard to survive as a musician, and it's, even harder still to make it so that you can make a real, a living, and pay for your life just from music. And I feel, obviously very blessed to have done that, but, when I was at that place, and I was at that intersection where, people weren't coming to see me, and I was making records and no one was buying them and no one was listening to my music, I couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do. Honestly, there was nothing else that I cared about enough to get out of bed every day and do. Yeah. So I kept going.
Well, that's really inspirational. Lots of young people look up to you and love your music. When you were a teenager, what concerts were you lining up for? What artists were inspiring you? And you're originally from Atlanta, right? So I'm guessing there were a couple of music midtowns in there?
Yeah. I grew up in Atlanta, that is true. And so let's see, concerts I went to as a kid. So the first concert I went to without my parents, I went to see No Doubt play at the Tabernacle in Atlanta when I was 15 maybe, or 14, and they had that band Lit opening for them.
Oh, that's so exciting. I went to Atlanta I spent Christmas in Atlanta, and I know exactly what you're talking about. So that's really exciting. I saw them. That was the first show that I ever went to without my parents. And then we did see a lot of bands. So Music Midtown was a big festival when I was a kid. I actually played there 2 years ago. It was one of those kind of surreal things, because as a kid I saw the Black Crowes there. That was a big one for me. I love them. I saw Bob Dylan there. That was very Bob Dylan is obviously a big part of my thing. What was he like live?
I've seen him a couple of times, and it's different every time.
Yes, I've heard.
It's one of the things that I think is really interesting about him. It's like it's almost like he's a jazz artist in terms of the way that he interprets his melodies, where sometimes, even as a big fan, you'll hear him sing a song, and the way that he is changing the melody, you're like, I don't know what this is, and it turns out it's a song you've known your whole life.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting thing about seeing him. So I love Dylan. And saw Dylan there. I'm trying to think of other bands that I saw that were, big for. I mean, my stepdad is a metalhead, so he took me to G3, which is like a guitar tour where you see Steve Vai and Yngwie Malmsteen and Joe Satriani.
Yeah.
Actually, when one of my brother-in-laws was getting married, the night before his wedding, we'd had a cocktail or two, and
definitely not three.
Definitely not three. Certainly no more than two. We're civilized, and we were sitting there, and it was very late.
Musicians.
Yeah, everybody else had gone to bed. My brother-in-law Jeff is like a crazy good guitar player.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But he like works in business. He doesn't play guitar professionally. But so we're sitting there and we were talking about Joe Satriani, really, really like stinking falling down drunk. and
the two cocktails got a bit more.
Maybe we had more than two. I don't, maybe they were just really big. Maybe we were, drinking a bunch of them. But anyway, so we were sitting there trying to figure out, like, remember like a Joe Satriani song that we had both learned how to play, in high school or something like that. Like total guitar nerd geek stuff. And so, like, I don't know, there's all that stuff in there. For me, like, so the stuff that I love is so broad. So like we went with my family, we went to see Motley Crue. My stepdad and I both really like Motley Crue, so we went to see Motley Crue. My mom and my brother actually got thrown out of a Motley Crue and Aerosmith co-headlining date together.
How did they manage that?
I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm trying to think who else we saw. We saw Billy Joel when he and Elton John were doing those co-headlining tours. We saw those.
Have you seen Billy Joel play at Madison Square in New York?
I haven't seen Billy at Madison Square. I want to. I mean, it seems like he's going to play there every month until he dies.
Yeah, you have to.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I really want to. I do, and I love him. He's one of those artists. Like, you think about the fact that Billy Joel hasn't made a record of original music since the early 1990s, and he can still sell out arenas all over the world. He could sell out Madison Square Garden every single month, like he's playing like a hometown residency in a bar down the street from his house. Like, that's a miracle. There are kids who have having #1 records on the charts right now who weren't alive the last time that Billy made a record of original music.
Exactly.
So for me.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, for me, that's, I don't know. There's so many things in there. Like I said, so many things are part of the story. Like, we went to see Clapton, and that was a big deal. I saw Clapton again. We saw him in Miami, maybe 10 years ago or something, with Derek Trucks playing slide guitar in the band, and Steve Jordan playing drums.
Stop.
So it was that was a pretty serious one. And so that was a big deal for me. It's like I said, like I love music, and so I mean, obviously you don't become a professional musician if you don't love music. But I also love music in a way that, like, I don't have like guilty pleasures, and the things that I like, I treat them all kind of as being equally as valid as one another. So I guess I just didn't have the feeling that like loving pop music was like wrong or dirty if I liked rock music and I liked hip hop. Like, I loved hip hop. Hip hop was the first thing that I really found myself. The first music I ever bought myself was a tape I bought from the Wu-Tang Clan on the street in Newark, New Jersey, when I was like maybe 8 or 9, like as a little kid. So the hip hop was the first thing I ever discovered on my own. But I loved soul music. I saw Stevie Wonder and David Ruffin from the Temptations was one of my favorite singers, and country music, obviously.
In
my
Nashville.
grandparents. Yeah, now I live in Nashville. My grandparents have really incredibly broad tastes, so they exposed me to a ton of music, and they kind of always liked country music. And my grandmother always used to say that she would say this to her kids, because by the time I was around, Elvis was not. But she would say to her kids, "The only man that I would ever leave your father for is Elvis Presley."
I think most girls would have said that, Ron.
Yeah, she said, "If Elvis shows up in a Cadillac in front of the house, I'm going to take off my apron, I'm going to walk out, and you'll never see me again."
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. So, Ron, I just have to point out, you have really beautiful hair. How many bandanas do you own? 'Cause I just love your hair.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know, a couple. I don't know, like 5.
5 bandanas. That's not too bad. Hey, look, I think Tony's got another question. I'm going to hand it over to him.
Yeah. So you said before that you just sort of wanted to be in a band, and then your whole solo career came as a bit of an accident or just sort of by surprise. So in the future, like, where do you want to go? Do you want to stay doing this solo stuff, or do you want to be in a band, or what do you want to do?
It gets to a certain point, I think, as a solo artist, where I think solo artist, I guess, is like on some level a misnomer for me, because I always tour with a band. Yeah. I've never gone out on, it's very rare to see me play by myself. Because I don't like it. And I don't think it really renders what's different about me. You can go see a lot of guys pick up an acoustic guitar, sit down at a keyboard, and sing you a song. And I think that, knowing how to put on a show and be an entertainer, to me, that's something that I can do that's different and special. Yeah. And so I'm always in a band on some level. And I don't know that I would ever, be able to be in a band again, where everybody's in it all together, because there's certain stuff that I kind of end up having, even when I was in a band. I kind of end up having to do a lot of things that make it so that inherently you kind of end up with more of the work. I have to write the songs, unless I joined a band with a bunch of other guys who are really songwriters, I'm kind of going to have to write the songs. Yeah. So I don't know. The short answer is I don't know. I mean, I put together an incredible touring band to make the last album, the Ron Pope and the Nighthawks. That record was a great band. I put them in the studio. We worked together, and I wrote songs with many of those guys. They're all great singers. They're great multi-instrumentalists. It was really fun and challenging to play with those guys. But so I don't know. I don't know. Now that I'm down here, I'm kind of playing with musicians down here in Nashville, and we'll see where I end up. Maybe I'll start a super group with Marcus Mumford and Ed Sheeran, and we'll all get together. And
if you need a roadie for that, Ron. Hey, can we just talk about now your latest album, Ron Pope and the Nighthawks? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, early in 2014. I was on the road supporting my last album, Calling Off the Dogs. Mm-hmm. And I got to LA, and I was staying there for a while. I had a couple of weeks between U.S. tour dates and going to – actually, I was going to Australia. I was on my way to Australia.
Oh, welcome.
And so I was in LA, and I woke up one day, and I started writing. So I put together this band. I had a fall tour booked for the U.S., and I put together this band that was like my dream band. All the best players, with guys who I always asked to go on tour, but who end up, not being available because they're super in demand. Yeah. And so each of these guys, I'd call them, I'd be like, "Do you want to go on tour?" And I expected all of them to be busy, and every one of them, it was like a miracle. They were like, "Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I'll go." Yeah. And so, just to tell you how unbelievable this was, Mike, who plays drums in the band, I have known Mike for 13 years. And since the first time I walked into a bar and saw him playing in college, he was in the best band at NYU, except for the District, which is my band. He was in the second best band at NYU besides my band. Yeah. And actually, honestly, they were way better than us. It was crazy. They were like the best players we'd ever seen. And so the first time I saw him, I was like, that guy's got to be my drummer. Holy crap. Whoa, what is that? And so after that, every gig that I played, I asked Mike to play on. Every tour, everything I did, I invited Mike to do, and he and I had played one show together in 13 years.
Wow.
And I'd asked him to do everything. He was just always busy. So
And now he's not.
anyway,
Now he's with you.
yeah. So for that one, in that one instant, his schedule was open. He always used to feel bad. Like I would call him and he'd be like, "Oh, Ron, I hate to do this, but there's no way that I can come on tour. I'm so sorry. I know I always say no. Please don't stop calling me. Like, I love you. I want to do it." He always felt so horrible because he was just always booked when I called him. So anyway, so it was like that. It was just like a miracle. And then one guy after the other, they all said yes. And so now that was, I put them all together early in the year, like maybe in April. So in May, I'm in LA. And now I know that I've got this band of dudes. Now I have never played with them, but I know all of them. I've played with each of them in different circumstances, but I've never had them all in the same room. I've never played with all 6 of them.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about the fact that they all can really, really sing. It's like being in a choir, but everybody has a beard and there's lots of denim.
And there's lots of denim.
Yeah. And so anyway, so I started thinking about writing songs that would showcase the fact that everybody was such a good singer. And so, I was in LA, I had a little time, and so I wrote White River Junction, which is on the album. And that was the first thing that I wrote for this record. And then I was like, this is cool. Like, and I wasn't thinking about making a record. I was just thinking about writing some tunes for all of us to sing, so that we would have, stuff for the whole band to sing giant stacked harmonies on.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that, and then I was like, maybe I'll just keep writing if I have some time.
Yeah.
And so while I was in LA, the next thing I wrote was Hotel Room, like later that week. Wow. So that also ended up on the record. And then I just kind of, I was like, maybe I'll just keep writing. Why not? And then I got the idea.
Nobody can stop me now. Yeah,
I was like, well, I'm here, and so I wrote a couple songs while I was in LA, and so I came to Australia, and I was writing while I traveled there, and then I ended up writing so I started a label, and so the first 2 artists I signed, are this guy Truitt, who's like a blues rock, like guitar hero, great, cool, soulful singer, and then another guy named Tim Olstad, who's like a blue-eyed soul kind of guy. Yeah. So anyway, while I was in Australia, I wrote some of Tim's songs, and just kind of kept, working my way, working on songs as I traveled, and I went to Perth, and then I went up to Broome, and then I went back to Europe for the summer. So I just kept writing. Then I kind of got the idea. I was like, I've got a bunch of good songs. Maybe I should make a record.
Maybe.
And so we had this house booked in Georgia. We rented a house in North Georgia in the mountains on a lake called Lake Blue Ridge. And so I called my buddy Ted Young, and Ted is the engineer who has worked on my last couple of records. He's one of my best friends.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask, when you're doing these records, are you recording in Nashville?
No, I haven't made any records in Nashville.
Okay.
Yet. So I just bought my house here last year. So we're like kind of new to the city here. Yeah. I've made, all my records have been, everything that I've recorded in a studio since my very first album, I think. Everything else has been in New York. Except my first album we made in Atlanta, the Ron Pope and the District one, that first one. Yeah. And we made some records in Cape Cod too. So I'm lying. But no, we haven't made any records in Nashville. Anyway, so I called Ted and I was like, hey man, do you want to come on tour with us and record an album while we're on tour? Because I have this great band. And I was expecting him to say no. He's like a super big deal, like incredibly well-regarded, Grammy award-winning engineer, like a studio engineer who, like goes in the studio and works. He works in like a hermetically sealed environment in the darkness. Like a recording studio is like a cave. Yeah. So he's used to like a very controlled, like climate-controlled indoor environment. And I was like, hey man, I'm sure you don't want to do this, but I was wondering, do you want to go on tour with us and make this record? And he was like, hell yeah, I want to go on tour.
You're getting all of them wrong.
Yeah, he's like, can my bunk be next to yours on the bus? Let's go. And so Ted was like, let's go do this. And so then we realized we were going to this house in Georgia. Like I said, we rented this lake house. So we were going to be going there to rehearse. And so we decided we'd bring the recording gear into the house and start recording there. And So we started work down there, and then once we got to Georgia, I was writing with the guys in the band as well, and then we went on the road and we recorded all the shows, and then we recorded, like, Hotel Room. That song is recorded, it's just 7 of us, the guys in the band, and then my friend Zach Berkman, who's like one of my songwriting partners and a good buddy of mine. So it's just all 8 of us sitting in a circle in this big loft in Louisville that we rented, and just all playing live together. So it's so some of it is like in the house, some of it is on the road, and then we came back to New York and went to the studio. We worked there for a while. So there's a pretty wide variety of things, in terms of how the recordings were captured. Some of it is straight up studio stuff, and One Shot of Whiskey is just me sitting at the piano in Georgia in the house. I just sat down at the piano and played the song through, and that's what's on the record. Just me singing and playing it live in the house.
You've done One Shot of Whiskey. You should do like 2 shots of cocktails. Hey, social media, it's an excellent form today for musicians to get their music out there, like YouTube, Facebook. Do you also feel in a way that the passion, the hard work in the music industry is dying? Like when you look at what Bob Dylan and stuff did, they were just constant hard work. Do you find that if you just press upload on YouTube, some of that passion's dying?
Well, I mean, Bob Dylan came to New York City when he was 19 years old, and within a year, the music industry had decided that he was a genius and made him famous.
He was.
So, yeah, like that's so to some extent, it's there's always been a button that the major labels and the big time players in the music industry could press, and take something and make it into a big deal, and so I don't know. Like, I think that at the end of the day, any path that an artist can take to make it so that people will pay attention to them, I'm all for it. I do think that to some extent the hardest thing about the rise of social media and the kind of democratization of the recording process and the distribution process is that everybody and like everybody's brother is in a band that has a record that has is on iTunes that you can buy anywhere in the world. And so I'd say that's really you have to wade through a lot more stuff to get to something good that is new. And also I would say as an artist, like like when I was a kid coming up and making music, there were 2 classes in the music industry. There were the haves. Like bands like the Rolling Stones were, they had a major label deal. And so they had money from a label to help them go hire a producer and go into a big studio and make a, great professional sounding recording. And then the label gave them access to global distribution for their music and a marketing budget and the ability to tour because they give them money for tour support. And all the things that you needed to make a, professional music project were very expensive and it was very closed. So you needed the help of a major label to do any of it at all. And then so there was that, and then there was the have-nots, artists who were hoping to get a record deal. You're playing in a bar, you're making demos, you're hoping that people will pay attention to you. To give you access to those things, all the things I talked about that the other the haves having. So right now I'm kind of part of this like emerging middle class in the music business where I have a career, but I don't own an airplane, You're not like Iron Maiden, you're not flying around in like Flight 666. Exactly, and so, and I think that, one of the things that has happened though, as the process has become more democratic and, you can distribute your music on your own, you can go on to, TuneCore and you pay whatever it is, I don't know if it's like $100 or something, and any person can take a record and distribute it. One of the things that has happened is that it's taken away the necessity of the should I do this? People don't have to ask the question anymore. Should I do this? Because it used to be that an A&R guy at a major label had to stake his career on you. He had to say to someone, "These people are good, and they're going to make music that somebody's going to buy, and people are going to pay attention to. Like there's an audience for this. You'll see." And so since that has been taken away and there isn't any kind of barrier between an artist and putting their music out on a global scale, people have stopped asking that question, should I do this? Is it ready? Because there's to some extent there's less risk or cost involved now. And so I think that's that's a thing that as a new artist, people should be careful and ask themselves, because anything you put on the internet you can duplicate it infinitely and it'll go on forever. And so like if you put a naked picture of yourself on the internet, when you're 100 years old, that's still going to be on the internet. Just like if you put a recording of yourself that you hate on the internet, that will be there forever. It's never going to go away. And so I think, to some extent, like, that's a thing that is maybe not good for music as a whole, because people, they take whatever, people are like, I know how to record and, use my computer to record something, and so I should put this out. Like, so, because there's less curation, there's less, there's less thought about what's gonna come out.
I'll never forget, a busker once said to me, the best thing about music is anybody can pick up a guitar and play, and the worst thing about music is anyone can pick up a guitar and play. So, yeah, there you go.
Absolutely true. 100% true. Yep.
Exactly. So, just got one more question for you, Ron. What do you are getting really successful in this industry. What do you feel that you bring to the music industry that makes you different and like pushes you that bit further?
Oh man, the thing that I love about art is that it's subjective. So when if I was a painter, let's say, and I painted a house, I thought, I painted a picture of a house, and I thought it was a house, and I showed it to you, and you looked at it, and you thought it was a frog. Well, it's a frog to you. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant what I think about it, because art is subjective, and so if you think it's a frog, it's a frog. And so to me, I don't know what makes people pay attention to this. Like, I know I work very hard. I know that, I believe in the music that I'm making, and I've worked hard to learn to write songs and to play, as well as I can, and to sing, and, and I try to put on a great show, and, we're obviously we're very diligent in the way that we try to, promote the music, because nobody else is going to do it for me. And so we are, very active in that. But, I don't know. I honestly, it's like some combination of all of those things, and then people deciding that they like it, and that's something, there's some magic in that, I'm not sure. I'm just doing my best and hoping that, if I make music that I love and I believe in, then some other people will feel the same way.
Yeah, well, Ron, what you're doing is really inspirational. I'm going to hand it over to Tony now, say some final words to you, and we'll wrap it up.
I just want to say that I totally get what you're on about this whole music thing, because I've just finished recording my second album, and I'm really in two minds of whether to put it up on iTunes or whatever, or get people to get it online, or to sell it as I have been selling my other album, which is like just by hand, and then getting involved with the people that want to buy it, rather than just being that sort of mask on the internet where people just buy your music. So I know exactly what you're on about. Because I personally want to be very involved with all the people who want to be into my music and that sort of stuff. I don't want to be that, that sort of mask on the internet, just buy it here and just listen to it and then that's it. So I know what you're on about, and honestly, mate, I've listened to everything you've said, and I think it's brilliant. It's just increased my admiration of you. I think you're a great guy, and I think what you're doing is really good, and you seem very humble about it all. I love it, man.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Ron. Look, it's been amazing chatting to you this morning. All the best in Nashville. Make sure, have you had any southern chicken while you've been there?
Oh, the Nashville hot chicken?
Yeah, have you tried to get down to Hattie B's chicken, okay?
Yeah.
And have the shut the clock up.
Okay.
It's got a thing called ghost peppers on it, and it's the hottest thing you will ever eat. It hurts.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like that's not like an advertisement for me. Every time I go to Hattie B's, there's a line, and I don't. There's nothing that I want to eat enough to wait in line to get it. I'm like, every time I drive by there, I'm like, I'll come back tomorrow.
But the shut the clock up is seriously hot, so just